Standing here in Evesham on the site of Evesham Abbey, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you all Barry Baldelli, the chair of Evesham Abbey Trust. Barry's going to talk to us a little bit about the trust, how it was formed and what we're all doing.
Well, about 4 years ago there were a couple of us who had this crazy idea that this site had been closed off from the general public for far too long. So we decided that we'd approach the owners and say, could we have a little bit of it so that we could show the general public what was inside? And as a result of that meeting, they offered us the whole site.
Amazing!
And we thought, golly gosh, what do we do now? Because this is 1.7 acres and that's an awful lot of land and an awful lot of responsibility. So we started the process of creating an organisation to look after it and to do the work on it. And secondly, we had to start looking for the money. And the money is, of course, always a very difficult bit to find. And here it's going to cost 1.1 million to restore the walls and create a series of gardens so that when you walk around here, you'll be able to see exactly what the monks were about and the history of the abbey and all the personalities and the people that were involved.
Well, it's a very daunting task, isn't it? So we went to English Heritage and we also went to National Lottery Trust, and with their support and the support of the town of Evesham and the businesses and the community, I'm pleased to say that we've come through the first stage of the project and we're about to do the very exciting development stage, which involves working closely with 28 of our schools. And the view that you can see behind us hasn't been seen by the general public for over 300 years, and I think you'll agree it's pretty amazing. When you consider that after the dissolution of Evesham Abbey, the only thing that was left is the freestanding bell tower and the two parish churches of All Saints and St Lawrence. Barry, how many tons of detritus have the volunteers moved from this site?
Well, when we came here, it was all being higgledy-piggledy, and there were allotments here and allotments somewhere else, and there were bits of old sheds and there were old bits of timber, and we got our volunteers in here and we moved 40 tons of metal, rubbish, glass, old ivy, and it was an amazing task undertaken by a huge army of volunteers and supporters. And you can see now that it looks reasonably tidy and clean, ready to begin the restoration works.
And it's recently been levelled and seeded with grass so that schools can come down onto the site for an educational visit when they're allowed to.
And we'd be very, very pleased to see them all, because I think this is what you're going to inherit. We're too old to be here for very much longer, but the next generation will own this site and the generation after that will own this site. So that's what we think is most important of all, that you come and look at what you're going to inherit.
Absolutely. When I was first approached in 2016 to be a trustee of the Evesham Abbey, I was so excited because I was then an existing head teacher, and teaching has always been my joy and my passion, and it's very much about passing the history of Evesham on to the next generation and putting it into the hands of people who are going to care for it, look after it and teach their children and their grandchildren. Do you know, Barry, my great-grandmother had a garden through the allotment wall, and my mother used to talk to me about coming here on a Sunday afternoon for a picnic. And now here we are, all these years later, thinking about the next generation of Evesham children and families enjoying the site. And won't it be wonderful when it's finally open and they can come in?
Yes, and hopefully within the next 2 years we shall be able to open the place up. You'll be able to come and understand it. And also the most important thing, the stones are here and they're important in their own right. The most important thing is the stories of the people who were involved with this abbey. People like Lady Godiva and Simon de Montfort and Eof and St Egwin. You know, some fabulous stories to tell. And these were people like you and me who made their own little bit of history within their own time. There is 1,300 years worth of history here, and we want to tell that story to everybody.
Absolutely, and probably the most humble was Eov the swineherd,
Yep.
who looked after the pigs for Egwin, who was the 3rd Bishop of Worcester. And it was while he was tending the pigs that he had a vision of the Virgin Mary, and he was so moved by it that he went and told Egwin, and Egwin came to the very place and had the same vision, and that inspired him to build the Abbey church. And while Egwin went on to be beatified, I don't think much else happened to Eov the swineherd. He might have got an extra pole of pottage or something.
But his name lives on.
It does.
Eov is the beginning of Evesham. It's Eov's ham becomes Evesham.
And Ham is homestead,
Said,
isn't it?
yeah.
So it's Eov's homestead became Evesham. And so we have a lot to thank him for. We certainly do. And Barry, the site, before it was given to you and the other trustees, was owned by the Rudge family
Yep.
from 1644.
That's right.
Edward Rudge was a merchant from London, and he came and bought the site of the dissolved abbey, and I believe that some of his ancestors carried out sort of gentlemen's archaeological digs.
Yes, Edward Rudge, which was one of the descendants, in between 1810 and 1830, did a archaeological dig on the site. He was mainly concerned with the abbey site rather than just the remainder of it, because he wanted to discover where the abbey church was, where the nave was, where the high altar was, and he did quite an extensive excavation. A lot of the site still hasn't been archaeologically looked at.
That makes it really
So
exciting.
that makes it really exciting because we don't quite know what may or may not be there, though we do know a lot about what was in the nave. But we're hoping that we can get people involved, including people from school, come and have a look, come and perhaps have a little bit of a dig as well, and explore how archaeologists discover things, how they interpret them, and how we as a result better understand the history here.
That's wonderful, because it's so much better than reading about it in a book, isn't it? If you can handle an artifact, and if you can look at a coin, or you can look at a tool that someone used, or if you can go to the Almonby Museum and open the Thomas Matthew Bible that was written in when the soldiers of the king turned up to dissolve Evesham Abbey. Obviously he didn't have his mobile phone to reach for and record it like we would today. He was able to write in the margin of the Bible that he was illustrating a first-hand account of what happened when the abbey was dissolved.
And the only contemporary account of that kind in the world. So Evesham's quite unique. We can actually know what was happening when the King's Commissioners came in and threw all the monks and the abbot out.
Absolutely, and that was January the 30th, wasn't it, 1540, and the monks were all in mid-service, and the King's men came in, and there was John of Ulster, who later on became one of the vicars of Hampton, and he wrote this first-hand account, which is a primary source of what actually happened when Evesham Abbey was dissolved. Well, Barry, thank you so much
Thank
for
you, Elizabeth.
starting
And,
us off.
And to all the children and youngsters who will be looking at these things, do come and join us, do come and have a look, and do become as excited as we've been.
Absolutely.